Everybody, Jason Burmis here. And, as we've talked about in the past, when you dare to put out a counter narrative and then you dare to back it up with evidence, you are not only attacked in the press, but the more recent trend in recent memory, unfortunately, in this country, and really the Western world, the supposed free first world, the democratic world, is to now prosecute and criminalize this behavior. And this trend should alarm people, it should disturb you, and it should call you to action. And that's why the Assange case has so many implications for so many of us out there. And because of that, I've got Steve from Slow News Day Show on with me. Steve is part of the Action for Assange Network. He also has the Slow News Day Show. And, he covers everything from Assange to geopolitics in the Middle East and the media military industrial complex itself. And that's why it was extremely alarming when both he and Whitney Webb reached out to me to discuss Vanessa Beeley. And if you are unfamiliar with her work, I hope that you're about to become very familiar with it, because it is extremely important, especially when you talk about these faux wars on terror that may be fake in nature, but are very fucking real to the people's lives they eradicate in those nations you've only read about and seen on TV. So, Steve, I know that you just got off the Assange vigil for the evening. You had Ray McGovern on. I was in and out, but I caught a lot of what McGovern had to say. Great work, as always. People need to follow you over there as well. But really tonight is going to be dedicated to Vanessa, who I've also reached out to and hopefully will have on the show, because she's done so much important work on pulling the veil away from what the media wants you to believe in Syria. So why don't you describe her work and its importance to my audience?
So for a number of years, and thanks for having me back. I know I was just on a couple of days ago. It's a real quick return on this one. But this is an issue of vital importance. For the last several years, Vanessa Beeley, who is a UK-born journalist, has been living in Damascus in Syria and has been covering atrocity after atrocity after atrocity and false flag after false flag after false flag on the ground in Syria. Her reporting on the White Helmets and their now deceased founder, whose name I can't pronounce. I've been calling him James LaMonster because it's kind of close and it makes sense. The more you know about the guy, the ex-spook who started the White Helmets, has been just groundbreaking and vital and necessary. And she has painted a target on herself for being fearless and for doing what journalism is supposed to fucking do, Jason, which is be adversarial and ask tough questions and ask questions that people don't want you to ask. I think it was Orwell, who said journalism, is when you piss off people in power and everything else is public relations. And Vanessa Beeley is pissed off people in power. She broke the story about the White Helmets being involved in organ trafficking several years back. Her Wikipedia page is a testament to Philip Cross's greatest hits. And Eva Bartlett, who is an Irish journalist who has also spent several years living in Syria, who has exposed a number of these horrors as well, is also dragged into this shit show. So here's what's happening. And yesterday at like 9 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call from Whitney, and she was freaking out, rightfully so, because the list of independent journalists that governments are going after is getting longer and longer and longer, starting with Craig Murray, now Vanessa Beeley and Eva Bartlett. The BBC4, which is a radio network, is putting together a series that they're going to launch, I believe, next week. And in this series, the BBC4 reporter and segment producer act as the prosecution or act as the Ministry of Justice. And they lay out what amounts to an indictment. I'm going to, if you don't mind, I've got the email that Chloe with an unpronounceable last name sent to Nessa. And I just want to read the part where she basically says we can charge you for this. There's a laundry list of just horrific things that they're planning to say about Vanessa Beeley and about Eva Bartlett. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you and your audience. I've gotten to know Vanessa pretty well over the last year. She's been on my show a number of times. I do consider her a friend. She's definitely a friend of the show. So this is very personal for me. In the email she received, it says one lawyer we've spoken to tells us that someone who spends time with Syrian ministers and who is publicly calling for humanitarian workers to be bombed, which is bullshit, by the way, may be liable to face charges of aiding and abetting, inciting or conspiring to commit a crime under international law. This could appear to apply to you. Do you have anything you'd like to say about that? The email manages to bring in Russiagate, every Assad conspiracy theory, years of reporting that has never been disproven. And now we've got BBC4 who wants to play prosecutor, wants to play Ministry of Justice, and they've got more or less a captive audience because the UK is back on lockdown. There's a number of cities that are just flat out locked down. And BBC4 has been allowed to sort of proliferate during this period because nobody can fucking go anywhere. So they're stuck listening to one of 4 channels on state television. Jason, the BBC is a state-funded network. And they have the temerity and the gall to go after Vanessa Beeley because RT and Sputnik have picked up her work among other outlets.
It's amazing that now anything that the mainstream media in the West decides is not newsworthy becomes Russian propaganda, despite the fact that when you look at, for instance, the OPCW leaks, there has never been any kind of allegation that somehow WikiLeaks colluded with the Russians to get those documents. Why? Because that's not how they fucking got them, Steve. They got them from the whistleblowers on the inside. But yet, the narrative before, the illegitimate United Nations of the Trump administration is what? That indeed it is Russian propaganda. And that is what blows my mind. I guess when you have a guy like Tariq Hadid who works at Newsweek for all this time, tries to defend what they're doing, comes to a realization, and then is kind of soft on the media the first couple weeks out and now goes pretty damn hard, you see the frustration and the reality of the situation that when you report on the real war crimes, okay, when you expose the truths of the origins of these organizations that really can't be called anything but terrorist organizations. And I'm just going to use that term because I dare use it because Assad uses it. He calls them the terrorists because they are in his country illegitimately. You got to understand this administration took that conflict one step further by saying, you know what, Golan Heights, Israel's. It's Israel's. It is. Hey, yeah. We're just going to declare it. And, Pam Beeley exposing the fraud of the white helmets and their true purpose, like you said, is just one of the many things that she's done over the years. And people have to realize that just like that, the DNC leaks were just one of the many things that Assange had revealed over the years. And this is not a partisan issue. And by the way, I want to apologize to the YouTube audience. We were live for like 3 minutes where it wasn't broadcasting because of this damn new studio. So we will repost it. Yeah, you want all the Poikinen you can get, all the Slow News Day show that you guys can get. But Steve, how long is this series that's going to be airing on the BBC radio? Are we talking about, you said it was going to be several parts. And when you say they're going to lay out a case that she's somehow a criminal and we can prosecute you for this, do you think that legal action is going to be the next step and they're just kind of trying to now manufacture the consent in the public arena so there isn't pushback?
So to the best of my knowledge, it's going to be a 5-part series. So it'll begin on Monday, like 2 weeks from yesterday, and it'll roll throughout the work week. And again, this is not just Vanessa Beeley that they're going after. They're also going after Eva Bartlett. They're going after a former ambassador, Jason, in this series. His name's Peter Ford. I'm trying to get a hold of him. Trying to get some comments from him as well. But the purpose seems to be character assassination, making these people seem to be like fraudulent actors, or anywhere from fraudulent actors to guilty of aiding and abetting terrorists in the series. And whether or not it leads to legal action, I don't know if that's something that speculation is going to help with, because we've already seen in the case of Julian Assange and in the case of Craig Murray, who was a former ambassador himself and is now being, I guess, hemmed up or stitched up in a legal case in Scotland for reporting that he's done both on Julian Assange and on Alexander Salmond. So this is a continuation of the West's war on journalism. And if they feel like there's public support, or if they feel like they can get away with it, they will absolutely go through criminal proceedings against Vanessa Beeley. The fucked up thing about this right now is that she's in Damascus, Syria, a war zone, or, war zone adjacent, because most of the actual blowing up of shit takes place outside of Damascus. But Damascus is the safest possible place that she could be, because if she goes to a Five Eyes allied country, she can be swooped up. Same with Eva Bartlett, by the way. And while your audience is here, Saturday on the Free Assange Vigil, we're going to have both Vanessa Beeley and Eva Bartlett on, so that they can talk about this and air out, whatever grievances they may have.
To kind of just shift gears a bit to Assange and the silence that we've had in the media, especially in this election year, and now we're just so damn close, and the hypocrisy of Trump and, those that are trying to still defend him, the pivoting to Snowden. Where do you see this issue going when we've seen the counterintelligence 2020 to 2022 document, where it's, again, public disclosure organizations, leaktivists, hacktivists? For instance, the big hype today, and I was going to do a separate video on this, was that there's now some kind of audio and video evidence of a cover-up surrounding the Bin Laden raid, which was kind of obvious from the very beginning. Seymour Hersh beat everybody to the punch on that one too, everybody, just to let everyone know. He said that was a farce and a make-believe story many years ago, wrote about it. That was about the end of his career, by the way.
That's it really was. They kept him around for maybe another 18 months and then found another reason to have him ride off into the sunset.
Yeah, but they never covered Hersh after that. They especially didn't cover the Seth Rich stuff that we've covered here. Okay, now think about that. Now, apparently it gets pretty dark. I mean, I watched the interview today with Katie, I'm not sure what her last name is. I believe it starts with an H. I started following her. But Gary Franchi did the interview, and I've known Gary for years, so I immediately...
You're talking about Halper?
It might be her. I'm not sure. You know what? Let me go to my home on my Twitter. Maybe I'll find her.
She do the show with Matt Taibbi?
No, I'm sorry. It's Anna Kate. Her name
Oh,
is
okay.
Anna Kate.
Yeah, no, she's good.
So Anna Kate says she's at this conference, and she hears this last speaker saying that they have evidence that not only were the SEAL Team 6 murdered, okay, basically killed by Brennan and the Obama administration, okay, a straight-up assassination after the fact, but that, in fact, the person that was killed was a double. It wasn't even bin Laden, and they knew he was being protected the entire time. And if you've looked at the Pakistani military, they were protecting bin Laden on the eve of 9/11. They literally were surrounding him at a hospital. It's in my film, Fabled Enemies. You can look it up. In January, Dan Rather and CBS did the story. They went to the hospital. They talked to the doctors. They talked to the staff. They all said bin Laden was there. They all said he was being protected by the Pakistani military. We know about the Pakistani money that's gone over, the $100,000 wire transfer. We know Joey B covered that up when Biden had a brain. All that stuff. We know it all. And she's saying that she's heard the audio tapes and that they are damning. And I don't know if I can break this here, but me and Gary texted a couple times back and forth. And let me just say that Gary Franchi apparently is going to show this evidence to somebody. I'm not going to name the name, but people would be blown away if I told you the name of the person he was meeting with today. And off air, Steve, I'll clue you in on it. But it's pretty amazing. And this would be a huge scandal, but now we live in the era where the truth no longer matters, right? Russia still. No indictees, no arrests for Biden, Brennan, Clapper, Obama. All the evidence in the world, right? The joke that we're going to get everything declassified. Well, Trump said we were. You know, that was a great point that Ray McGovern made on your show today. Why don't you kind of go over that, what we're discussing?
So, and without having so first let me explain that I experience each and every live stream in what amounts to a blackout. I'm probably going to have to rewatch, to get the finer points of what Ray said. But real quick, like, we were supposed to have full declassification with, on the JFK documents. We were supposed to have that, 3 years ago, 2 years ago? All of that was supposed to come out?
It was the opener.
And
it was
the
presidential opener. And then he stalled 6 months.
Yeah.
He took about 6 months. He said, no, we're going to do it. We're going to give the people what they want. And he tried, and he didn't. And he's like, 6 months from now, it's happening. We're going to do it. We're going to give the people what we want. No. And then we never heard about it again.
Essentially, what Ray was saying, though, about this declassification is, yes, the president has the legal authority and has all the power in the world to declassify any document that he wants to. It doesn't matter how high up the classification change the document is. The president has the authority and the power to declassify those documents. What the president doesn't have is a will of his own, or a spine of his own, and he is subjected to the influence of these unelected, permanently entrenched deep state actors. And if they let him know, Mr. President, if you declassify this information, things are going to go really bad for you, then he's not going to declassify the information. Essentially, he's a president with, not necessarily without power, but he's a president whose power is dependent on the whims of the permanent state. So he's got to go up against a Gina Haspel and what's his name? Christopher Wray in the FBI, who's been no friend to him, by the way, has not done Trump any favors whatsoever.
Can I just say this? He does not get the play he deserves. That guy, Steve, strikes me as a straight up sociopath.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see any redeeming qualities in him. In fact, in a lot of ways, to me, he seems more dangerous than Mueller ever was, because he's kind of sharper. He's less rigid, so he's a little bit more likable to the public. He's just like, well, this is what we're doing. The evidence is here. Yeah. And he's well kept, but he's a lot looser than, I mean,
Robert Mueller is basically Lurch from the Addams Family.
Well, I'd say he's straight out of Dragnet, right? Like, he's like one of those, like, straight up.
Sure. He looks like a wooden corpse. But no, I mean, Christopher Wray, he's kind of happy-go-lucky about it. He knows how to talk to people. He knows how to, like, schmooze people. And if he can, look, he's the director of the fucking FBI. It's not like he doesn't have any power. It's not like he doesn't have the ability to make things happen in DC. And it's not like it's not part of his job description to listen to what the president tells him to do. So for him to be, and again, this is a series of deep state actors now. It's a series of people who are heads of 3-letter agencies who are not just, adversarial to the whims of this particular president. They're openly hostile. So there's no fucking way Trump gets to declassify all of this. None whatsoever. He's going to do exactly what he did with the JFK documents. He's going to balk. He's going to be like, oh, we'll give it to you after the election. And then after the election, it'll fucking go away. But he can dangle that over there. You get the truth about Hillary. If you elect me, you get the truth about Russiagate. If you push that button for Trump, you do. Let's see it happen. Come on, go make them votes. And then nothing. It'll just be like,
oh, let me ask you, because, it's right on the table right now, and I had Palast, surprisingly. I didn't know I was going to be talking to Greg Palast yesterday.
I saw that for about 10 minutes, man. That was fucking hectic.
It got out of control, but I got a good 15-20 with him where no one else was kind of talking, and I didn't realize that at first my mic was off, and I was like, I was jawing to get at Palast because, I tried to book him a couple years ago. I'd interviewed him, I think back in 2008 or 2009. I've always respected Greg's work. And one of the things I liked about Greg is that, he was a BBC guy. He did get his stuff published in a lot of mainstream European papers. He wasn't afraid to go as far as, say, Michael Moore on 9/11. He pointed out the Saudi connection in The Best Democracy Money Could Buy. He threw that in there as a jab, the Bin Laden connections. But then, recently with what I've seen him saying, and I'm not against, his research, because I do believe a lot of these minorities and black people are purposely thrown off the rolls and discouraged from voting. That's real. It's absolutely real. And voter fraud is real. But he was just spinning so many mainstream talking points. At the same time, I wanted to get the other side of the coin, right? He's got the book out. I respect him. What was your impression of, Palast, who should be now even more independent than he was, because he's not really doing stuff for the BBC anymore. He's got GregPalast.com. But he, like he said when he got there, I just got off NBC. Oh, is that right, Greg? I didn't know that NBC was interviewing you 10, 15 years ago, because they fucking weren't.
Yeah.
So what were your thoughts on that?
So here's what's happened to Palast in the last 2 years. And like so many people who have done really good work throughout their careers, including Ralph Nader and Noam Chomsky, a number of figures that were, certainly not a part of mainstream politics. Palast got the Trump derangement syndrome really bad. And to the point to where he went from The Best Democracy Money Can Buy to How Trump Stole the 2020 Election, which he published in like May of this year. His work on election integrity should be admired. His work on election fraud should be studied. But what you should not do is take his personal opinions about this into consideration. You know what I mean? Like the reason that he's not fucking around with the BBC anymore and he is allowed back in those mainstream circles is because he made a deal with Stacey Abrams in 2018 when she had her governor's race stolen from her in broad daylight in front of everybody. Like, it was completely obvious. Everybody knew about it. And so Palast partnered with Abrams and they formed this little, oh God, I can't remember the acronym anymore, but they formed
alliance? A pseudo alliance?
Yeah, well, and no, they formed an organization. Let's count the votes and let's do this.
An NGL?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
And this is before she got her job at Center for American Progress.
All right.
So it was in the interim period when she was still challenging the election. It was Greg Palast and his investigative team that led the charge for that. But because he signed on with such a mainstream figure like Stacey Abrams, even though they never went ahead and pushed into either Georgia courts or U.S. federal courts, the challenge that they rightfully had because she had an election stolen from her, they backed off of that. And because he kept his mouth shut about that and immediately started writing a book about how Donald Trump is going to steal the 2020 election, he's been welcomed back into the fold. So he's going, like, he goes to different parties now. You know what I mean? Like, whereas 6-7 years ago, he might have been wound up hanging out with us. He's now going to the same fucking parties where you've got like James Risen and Rachel Maddow and fucking all that shit.
Steve, I'm fucking fun to hang out with, bro.
I feel like I'm pretty fucking fun to hang out with
listen,
too, man.
We're not wine and dining. There's probably no strip clubs, guys. I'll be honest. But if you like a good dive bar or a sports bar or a good concert, you know, if those ever come back. Like I said, I was supposed to have the guy from Caged Aggression on. There's going to be live MMA in Iowa Friday and Saturday. If you like that kind of person, hey, we're those guys. You know, we're actually human beings who can talk to us. I'll never sell out. I mean, it's cool to hang out with people, I guess, of note or whatever. But the bottom line is, I'm not trying to be a fake fucking person to do it. And I'm not trying to, especially in this environment. And, you know, I asked him about Assange. And he talked about how he was getting like this award, Co and Co with Assange, but he didn't really bring anything up like, hey, why aren't you or any other journalist calling Trump out on Assange or writing about Assange right now? What's going on here? You know, I mean, Palast, I haven't seen a lot of talk on Assange. Have you?
No, not a shred, to be honest. And it's incredibly disappointing. Look, here's a guy who's built his career on disclosing just how fucked our election system is. And I'm going to qualify this with, I am not a Tulsi Gabbard supporter. I'm not a supporter of anybody in the fucking two-party, one-party bullshit. I'm not. But Tulsi Gabbard just came out. She comes out with election integrity bills like every 6 months. Greg Palast doesn't comment on any of that. Tulsi just came out with Thomas Massie. With House Resolution 1175, dropping the charges against Julian Assange, came out with an identical one for Snowden, and came out with another one that would reform the Espionage Act so it can't be politically weaponized against whistleblowers. Greg, that's right in Greg Palast's wheelhouse. It is. Crickets. Fucking crickets. And that should tell you all you need to know about who's buttering his bread now. And where his allegiances ultimately lie. And they lie with the establishment at this particular point in Greg's career.
Well, I'd love to have a long-form discussion with Palast and be able to challenge him on some of those ideas.
Oh, God, me too.
Because, you know, again, when he was talking about, again, Boogaloo Boys, which is almost like a fictitious group at this point, and then Proud Boys, I mean, I'm no Proud Boy. We sat there at that I guess right-wing convention with McGinnis and Fuentes and all those guys. I wasn't worried. Were you?
There's pictures with me and fucking Enrique Tarrio with our arms around each other. He signed our WikiLeaks flag.
You know, exactly. That's the other thing. You know, I was talking today. I'm just like, you know, all this stuff of right versus left, you know, conservative, liberal. Look, man, That's all bullshit. I go, if somebody with a BLM fucking shirt on wants to have a conversation, I want to have a conversation with that person. I go, I'll have a conversation with anybody because it's that time. Because I'm telling you, those people at the top, they want to squash journalists like Assange, like Beale, right? Like Bartlett. They don't want any kind of view that's outside of the mainstream. There is no fact check for Hearst Publications or, CIA Today. Let's be honest. There is no fact check. It's just not there. But we're going to get fact checked. We're going to be demonized. And I think they're trying to take it to next level. And we've seen that not only with Assange and now this, where prosecution is a real thing. So to kind of wrap it up, Steve, how can people make people more aware of this? Obviously, you can follow her at Vanessa Beale on Twitter, and she's giving more information out there. How can people get involved and out in front on this issue?
So, right off the bat, you can go and research, or you can go and just pick anything Beale has done in the last 5 to 7 years, and you can share that on social media. You can talk to your friends about the actual literal war on fucking journalism. It has nothing to do with red team or blue team calling the other person fake news. It has everything to do with the criminalization of speaking out against the narrative. And that's what it's come to. Julian Assange, of course, is currently the most notable victim of this. But again, there's criminal charges that have been filed against Craig Murray in the UK. It's likely to inevitable the criminal charges will be filed against Vanessa Beale. And I hope I'm fucking wrong about that. Out of everyone that the BBC4 is demonizing in their series, only Vanessa has been singled out in terms of this could land you in jail. So I don't know who she pissed off, but she pissed off the people who want her to not just shut up, but to be punished and to go away. Again, we're going to be speaking with both Vanessa Beale and Eva Bartlett on the Free Assange Vigil Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. They're going to get as much time as they need and want to air out, exactly what they're feeling and what they think, the impetus of this was, what really sparked this series, because it's random. Like, let's put together a puff piece on the guy who founded the White Helmets, who's been dead, and while we're, for a year or two now, so we're going to have a puff piece on him, we're going to have a puff piece on the White Helmets, and we're going to dedicate serious hours to destroying the careers and credibility of independent journalists who have fucking put themselves in harm's way over and over and over and over again to get the truth out to us, to the point where Vanessa started writing on Whitney Webb's Unlimited Hangout site. They've done some work together, and I fear that RT and Sputnik and a number of the other outlets that have picked her up are going to turn cold on her because of this. So this is why we need real adversarial independent media. And again, I mean, go to Whitney's site, Unlimited Hangout, go to my channel, Slow News Day podcast on YouTube. I just had Vanessa on like a week or a month ago when I was evacuated and I was staying on Murder Mountain and coming to town to do some shows and shit. And like the last thing I asked her, this is ironic because of how it turned out. I'm like, hey, do you and Eva Bartlett ever just go get drunk together and be like, holy fuck, we're the only two sane white people in Syria right now?
There's got to be at least 5 others. There's got to be at least 5
she
others.
was like, yeah, we do.
Maybe 5. You can't meet everybody. I don't know. Steve, as always, I'm back on the road. I got to go back and get my car in New York tomorrow. But when I get back, we're going to have an update on this. We're going to have to talk more about Assange. Who knows where we're going to be in a week? I mean, things move so quick right now. If you're not following Steve on Twitter, at Slow News Day Show, now is the time. Steve is also on Rockfin with Action for Assange as well. I'm on Rockfin. Remember, if you support any of us, if you're a premium member, you get all of us. And we may not survive the year on YouTube. We might not even survive the month. Nobody really knows what's going to happen with that. So, Mr. Poikinen, when's your next broadcast so people can make sure to tune into that one?
So Slow News Day goes live every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. I'm going to have Fiorella Isabel from the Combo Couch and Charlie, I can't remember Charlie's
Robinson.
Name. Yeah, Macroaggressions.
Yeah, I like Charlie a lot, man.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic. It'll be the first time I'm having him on. I'm looking forward to that.
When are you coming on the Union of the Unwanted? Why haven't you?
Whenever you fucking invite me,
I'll get you invited. You're invited to the next one right now. I can't believe you haven't been on that show. That's so up your alley, my friend. I mean, those shows. I'll tell you what. I really enjoy them, not only for the openness of the conversation, not only the ability for me to take a break. You know, I try not to take over too much, but, you know, I'm a chatty Cathy, everybody, let's face it. And I'm interested in a lot of the guests. But the connections I've made and, you know, the different viewpoints you get and the ability to challenge somebody without it totally going to a shit show like last night with Palast at the end, where it did start getting a little boom, 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 right? Where people wanted to talk over each other. That's not the usual flow of the show. So
watching the facial expressions of that panel while Greg was talking, that was, oh my God, dude, that was so fucking entertaining. The people just burying their faces. Like, I can't say what I want to say because that's Greg Palast, but holy fuck, are you listening to Greg Palast?
Well, again, man, that's why I kind of was careful. You know, I wanted to, because I also wanted to hear his viewpoint. I didn't want to get into an altercation where we just start kind of yelling over each other. I want him to let me make my point too. And I mean, just the way he answered the question when I said, you know, I mean, William Crystal's working with John Podesta. I mean, no offense, everybody, but that kind of would have been unheard of in those early neocon days of like 2003 to even 2008 to 10. Maybe even after Obama. I mean, you wouldn't have seen that. You know what I'm talking about. And
no,
said, oh,
not even democracy.
A little bit. I'm like, that's not democracy, Greg, but I can't challenge you because you're about to leave. You know? Steve, always a pleasure. It's glad we could kind of keep it light in such dark times. Guys, I'm going to pull this video because we missed the first 3 minutes of it. I'm going to repost it. Poikinen, we got to do it again next week. It was not too soon to have you on. We have to have you on more often. And by the way, if there are shows that you can now make in that Monday through Friday, because when I get back from New York, it's going to be live on Rockfin, Monday through Friday, 2 straight hours, 11 a.m. Eastern, so 10 a.m. Central to noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern. You want to come on anytime on that. I'm looking for guests. We got to fill some time. We're going live. We're going to have to try to have an open phone line too, and at least for texts. So instead of just live chats, you know, you can get your text in. But I'm warning you, if I do that, folks, I'm not answering the fucking phone. Number one. And number two, you got to keep your text into at least one bubble. Double text bubbles, they don't get read. All right, Steve. We'll talk to you soon. I love you, brother.
I love you too, brother. You travel safe.
Thank you, man. Guys, Steve from Slow News Day Show. He always does a great job. Remember, both of us are on the Rockfin. Vanessa needs your support now more than ever. Go follow her. Go check out her work if you don't know about it. If you're ignorant on what's really going on in Syria, if you think that Assad gasses his own people, if you don't understand how much of that is a farce, you need to. And again, Steve, right there, Slow News Day. You want to support me? $5, $10, $15. It means the world to me, guys. I can't do this without you. Big donors, couldn't do it without you. We do it every month. We try to get to that 5K goal. Probably not going to do it. I've got to increase it. The output. You know, it's tough moving across the country, moving a family, all that stuff. All the documentary films, they're free in the playlist section. Make sure to go check them out. Thumbs the video up on the way out and subscribe. I love you guys, and I'll see you all on the flip side.